Uh-oh.
In her last two fights. Good way hitting him from that way down.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
If I'm bringing myself to America to train for me, like, and for nobody else, you think I'm going to come across the other side of the world to rattle Michaela Mayer? She was not in my sights. We was not planning to even fight her, but she got salty about me training over here, and then that's where all the talk has come from her, and that's what's made the fight really. So for me, I'm chilled. Like, me and Flick are putting in the work. We're getting ready for September 27th, and we're gonna shut someone up.
Sandy's never really been a big talker. She fancies herself more of a doer. To sell this fight, it's been Michaela Mayer doing all the talking. Michaela Mayer, who caught wind of these comments and said Big Head didn't have any plans to fight her. She'd just be chilled. I make shit happen.
They're headlining.
Later on this month, Michaela Mayer is doing her part to sell this fight, get attention to it, where, as stated, Sandy's not much of a talker, she's more of a doer, and she must be supremely confident to be traveling to America to fight under the top-ranked banner against one of their fighters.
She must be.
She must think that she's gonna do to Michaela Mayer what she just did to Terry Harper, and I disagree. I don't think that's how this is gonna happen, because I think Michaela is more durable than Terry Harper and a more well-schooled boxer than Terry Harper, and that's not a knock on Terry, but Michaela does have the amateur background that Terry doesn't have. Michaela has been in there with several hard punchers, Maiva Hamadouche, Alicia Baumgartner, more recently Natasha Jonas, and she's never been stopped to drop.
She's fought her fair share of hard punchers across several divisions, and she's never been stopped.
Why else would Sandy Ryan accept this fight under these circumstances if she herself didn't think that she would do to Michaela what she just did to Terry? Why would she accept this? You could have had Michaela come to you. You're the champion.
She's the one that needed a high-profile opponent. You basically gave her everything she wanted, including home field advantage. And the only reason I think Sandy would do this is because, one, they offered her a lot of money, and two,
she thinks she can knock her out. She thinks she can stop her. We'll see.
I doubt it.
Michaela's got height and length like Sandy Ryan, but I do think she's a little faster on her feet than Sandy with faster hands. I think Michaela is the more cerebral fighter of the two, whereas Sandy is more the brawler, the bulldozer. I think Sandy's got power and Michaela's got speed.
Because Sandy is the more natural fighter at this weight, the more natural welterweight, whereas Michaela is a smaller fighter that moved up, perhaps Sandy is the more durable fighter of the two.
Perhaps she takes a better punch than Michaela. Perhaps she can take more punishment than Michaela. But it's not like Michaela's going in there to knock her out. It's not like Michaela's trying to stop her. She's gonna outfox her, outbox her,
move and punch. Even though Michaela's not necessarily big on power, there's enough there, enough snap on the punches, that she can interrupt Sandy's momentum, disrupt her rhythm,
stun her, startle her. She doesn't have to try to knock her out to get her attention. What she does need to do is hit her with punches she doesn't see as she's coming forward. And between the trajectory of Michaela's punches and the trajectory of Sandy coming forward, that will add something to the punch.
I think Michaela's gonna win. I think she's gonna win a points decision. If she does, and Sandy loses...
It doesn't have to be the end for Sandy, far from it. She could always move up to junior middleweight, see about winning a title up there. She's got the physical dimensions to fill out and campaign successfully as a junior middleweight. I mean, if Terry Harper did it and Natasha Jonas did it, surely Sandy Ryan could do it. She's got more size and power than they do.
If she loses to Michaela, she could move up to 154. It's not the end.
It doesn't have to be if Michaela wins. And if Michaela wins, she can move into a Jonas rematch or maybe a unification with Lauren Price. There are some decent-sized fights there for Michaela if she wins this one, and I think she's going to.
Don't forget about Ivana Habazin. She's got the WBC.
It's another one, and the Ivana Habazin fight is a far more winnable fight than either a fight with Lauren Price or Natasha Jonas, that if one of those girls don't snatch her up, Michaela could always get to her. Unify with her.
This is the second phase of Michaela Mayer's career. It's underway.
Sandy Ryan's miscalculation has left the door open for Michaela Mayer to walk through it and, in effect, lift her WBO title from her. I think she's going to.
Mayer on points is the pick.
I don't often disagree with much what Simon Jordan says. I like the way he sticks it on people and he's honest. But he did say if AJ beats Dubois and becomes a 3-time world champion, he's in the realm of immortality. Sorry, Simon, but that's bullshit. You can't say that by winning a vacant title that's been stripped off the champ makes you a 3-time world champion. That's the problem I've got with this title being fragmented or being vacated or taken off the actual real champ, which is Usyk. That's my main problem. If AJ beats Dubois, he's going to hold his hand up with that IBF belt and say, I am now a 3-time heavyweight world champion. And everybody with a brain is going to be looking, saying, hang on a minute, didn't you lose to the guy that you've just took that belt off? And boxing shouldn't be like that. And that will be solved, that will, if we have the boxing league. If Turki Al-Sheikh does step in and start running boxing like Dana White, you won't get this. And I'll go back to what I said earlier before the fanboys get upset, start writing in to the Cobra, bitching and moaning about I fought Lucian Bute for the IBF title. He had 10 defences. He was unbeaten IBF champion. So I beat the champ. And also the WBC as well. I fought for the WBC title, which was vacated by Joe Calzaghe because he didn't want a piece of the Cobra. But look what Jean Pascal went on to do. In his very next fight, 1 or 2 fights, he was WBC champion. In fact, we're talking about people that went on to win more titles after I beat them. Jermaine Taylor was still a world champion 6 or 7 years later after I defended that WBC title for the first time in America when I climbed off the canvas in round 3. And that, my fellow friends and followers and lovers of Froch on fighting, is the reason that I am in the International Boxing Hall of Fame.
Carl Froch fancies himself a bit of a straight shooter, a guy who's going to tell it like it is, even if it ruffles people's feathers. And the biggest problem with his evaluation of Usyk being stripped of the title so that these two guys can fight for it is that Usyk was never actually stripped of the title.
That's why you hear me say that repeatedly. The IBF didn't take the title from him.
He gave it up because he wanted to. And Aegis Klimas, his manager, said as much. He only gave it up because he wanted to. He didn't have to.
Why would he want to give it up if he doesn't have to? Maybe he was given a financial incentive to do so. I don't know.
Could he have been paid to do it so that Daniel Dubois would be elevated to full champion and so the IBF title would be on the line in this fight? Perhaps. Perhaps that's the way it happened. But what didn't happen is the IBF stripping him, making Carl's critique of the situation inaccurate and off base.
There was no order for Usyk to fight Daniel. There was no deadline, no purse bid. He gave it up on his own time, of his own volition. That's the first thing.
The second thing, why are you making Anthony Joshua the focus of this critique when Anthony Joshua is not the one who was elevated to IBF champion? Daniel was, and Carl didn't spend any time on that. No, Carl would have you believe that going in, the title is vacant.
It's not.
You can go to the IBF's official website right now and you will see the name of Daniel Dubois as the reigning IBF champion.
He's got the belt. It's not vacant.
So why is Carl saying that it is? So that he can delegitimize Anthony's reign if he wins it, by saying he was fighting for a belt that nobody was holding when Daniel's holding it. He's been holding it for several weeks now. They're not fighting for a vacant title.
And if that bothers you, that Usyk beat Daniel, but now Daniel's got Usyk's belt that Usyk gave him, why aren't you criticizing Daniel? Why aren't you taking shots at Daniel? You're taking shots at Anthony.
When Anthony is not the direct beneficiary of Usyk's decision to vacate the title. Daniel was.
The direct beneficiary.
If something were to happen right now, and that fight would get cancelled, it would get called off, it would be Daniel that's in possession of the IBF title. So if you have a problem with this situation, this arrangement, shouldn't the bulk of your criticisms be aimed towards Daniel and not Anthony?
It should be.
If they're not, it's because Daniel, in spite of the hot streak that he's on, he's still nowhere near as successful as Anthony Joshua, and he's still not anywhere near as accomplished as Anthony Joshua, because it's Anthony Joshua's accomplishments that Carl has a problem with.
He doesn't like the idea that Anthony might be part of a short list of fighters, a very, very short list of heavyweight champions that have been heavyweight champions 3 times, and that's a short list.
I don't think he likes the fact that Anthony's the one who topped his record at Wembley with his fight against Vladimir Klitschko, and that he's set to top that record again with this fight, as the capacity for the Dubois fight has been increased to about 96,000.
6,000 more than Carl's 90,000, was it? 90,000 at Wembley in the George Groves fight, I think it was?
See, if you let Carl tell the story, he's gonna make it seem like people were pulling strings to put a title in Anthony's hands, when in reality, they put it in Daniel's hands. He's the one that got it. Anthony's gotta win it from him.
It isn't vacant.
You're saying that it is, so you don't have to acknowledge that this would be another champion on Anthony Joshua's resume. The fourth. The first was Charles Martin, the second was Joseph Parker, the third was Andy Ruiz, and the fourth would be Daniel Dubois, if he wins.
If you question the legitimacy of Daniel Dubois' reign as a champion, well, you can do that, but that's not Anthony Joshua's fault. What do you want him to do?
This is not an isolated incident. This happens periodically. Whenever mention is made of Anthony Joshua just doing something in the sport is brought up, it's not uncommon for Carl to crawl from under his rock and start complaining about it, because it's Anthony's accomplishments he has a problem with.
It's Anthony he has a problem with, not Daniel. He doesn't make any mention of Daniel, even though the title went to him.
Wasn't it Carl Froch just a few weeks ago asking, where's the humble Anthony Joshua, the media-trained Anthony Joshua? Why? Do you have a problem with this one?
As I recall, you didn't like the media-trained Anthony Joshua any more than you liked this one.
This Anthony Joshua, near as I can tell, there is no version of this fighter that you're all that fond of, and you don't have to be. You don't have to like him. Though if you're going to be a straight shooter, call a spade, and just say it like it is. You should just say you don't like the guy.
Instead of trying to disguise it.
Of course, if you just came right out and said it, that you don't like the guy, that might leave a lot of people so inclined to ask you, what is it about him you don't like? And I don't think you'd like that line of questioning.
What specifically? Since he's done a great service to the British boxing scene.
More than you, British boxing flourished, grew to the world stage because of Anthony Joshua. It's just the truth. He brought more attention to British boxing and British boxers than you ever did.
So as a Brit, one would think that you'd have a lot more nice things to say about Anthony than what you normally say. What's your problem? What specifically?
And I think the answer to that question is a lot more taboo than Carl would like.
Use your imagination.
Carl did, manufacturing a story where Anthony's fighting for a vacant title. It's not vacant.
Manufacturing a story where the IBF stripped Usyk.
No, they didn't. You made all that up. Now, as far as Anthony and the fight that he's about to have, asked Eddie Hearn, how many more fights does he believe Anthony Joshua has before retiring? At the moment, plenty. I've never seen him enjoy boxing so much, the preparation, the team. I think he's really found his rhythm with Ben Davison in the camp there. If you look back after the Alexander Usyk fights, you might have said, how many more fights? 3? 5? Well, we've had 4 since then. And now we're saying 5 more, still.
Are there actually 5 more fights left out there for Anthony Joshua? If he does what I think he's going to do to Daniel, if he stops him, what other fights are out there?
The fight that comes to mind almost immediately is the Fury fight, since Turki El Sheikh wants to make it whether Fury wins or loses against Alexander Usyk in their rematch. So the first fight that comes to mind is a Fury fight. The second fight that comes to mind,
the winner of Zhang versus Bakole.
Either Zhilei Zhang or Martin Bakole, since rumor has it there could be a fight orchestrated between them, and I think whoever wins that fight would also be a candidate for an Anthony Joshua showdown. So that's Fury, the winner of Zhang versus Bakole.
Dillian White.
What was supposed to be their rematch that fell apart as a result of Dillian Vite's adverse finding. He has since cleared his name. He's had a comeback fight. He's ready to keep fighting, so that's a fight that they could revisit. Now, I'm not a fan of that fight, and I don't think you guys are either, but it's there, and it's a possibility.
That makes 3.
Jarrell Miller, Jarrell Big Gravy Miller, Big Pharma. That makes 4. They have history, they have unfinished business, that if the mood should strike Anthony Joshua to return to America, to settle the score with Jarrell, they didn't get to settle years ago, that's another fight that's there. That doesn't mean Anthony wants it, that doesn't mean I expect it to happen, but it's an option, and it is there. And given Jarrell Miller's propensity for trash talk, he's a talented trash talker, you could really sell that fight.
In America.
That makes 4. I think Guido Vianello would make 5, either Guido Vianello or maybe another outlier in a Guide Caballel.
That makes 6.
Remember, we're just answering the question. Some of these fights are likelier to happen than others, but just answering the question, are there actually 5 or more fights left out there for Anthony Joshua? And I would say yes, there are. A rematch with Joseph Parker, that's another.
That's 7.
You talk about Anthony Joshua's headspace, his state of mind, and he's entering the second phase of his career, really entering into his own. It seems that he's found that happy medium between his boxing brain and his brawn. Ben Davison in his corner, I think, helps to round out what Anthony's been trying to do, the kind of fighter that he's been trying to be, that he's a devastating puncher, make no mistake.
He's a puncher, but he's not a brawler.
People tend to forget that Anthony is a well-schooled amateur, and in his heart, in spite of his brawn, he's a boxer. So after he avenged the loss to Andy Ruiz in their rematch, a lot of people noticed that Anthony was perhaps a bit more careful, more cautious. From the lessons that he learned in the Andy Ruiz fight, the first one, and what it took to win the second, you saw that Anthony was focusing on his boxing more.
And some people didn't like that. Some people interpreted that as him being gun-shy.
Yet another way to interpret that would have been that Anthony learned his lesson and tightened up his defense. Some said that it came at the expense of his offense, that he wasn't committing to his power shots the same way that he used to because he didn't want to get countered like he did in the Ruiz fight.
That's what some people said.
Some fights and some trainers later, Angel Fernandez, Derek James, now Ben Davison, I think Ben really helps to round out what he wants as a fighter, round him out as a fighter, complementing the fighter that Anthony is trying to be, the boxer who can brawl.
With brawn.
Because he's got knockout power, there's no question that he has it, but he likes to set it up. He's not just a bruiser.
I think Ben is a fantastic addition to Anthony's corner.
And many would say that when you look at him now, it does seem like he got his mojo back, his confidence back.
I think a part of that is watching Tyson Fury lose to the same guy that beat him. So many tried to shame Anthony Joshua for losing to Alexander Usyk,
while putting Tyson Fury on a pedestal. Well, Fury just lost to that same guy. So what do you have to say now?
Anthony Joshua's career has found its second wind.
I think he's going to be a champion again.